Alright, what is up, my friends? Welcome to our Ikoria Lair of Behemoths complete set review. I have properly appropriated the proper amount of time to do this time. Did my first ever set review for Theros Beyond Death last set, and thought it would take an hour or two, took 6. So we're in the middle of the day now. It's not up till 3 a.m., so I'll be a little more alert and ready to go here. And I'm pretty excited. The set's pretty wild. This is honestly one of the crazier sets they've released in a while. Two of the mechanics in this set are just crazy, and we'll get to that, of course, as we go. For those who haven't seen one of these before, I'm doing a full set review. It's every single card. Definitely a focus on constructed, because that's what I often play on stream usually, but limited as well. I'll be going over cards in limited. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on each limited only card, but we're going to go through every single one of them, talk about the mechanics, talk about the cards. Doing a new thing this time around, where I'm going to do a best of show for every color. You'll see that when it comes up. It's going to be pretty fun. And yeah, we're going over every single card. A few quick things before we start. Big thanks to my sponsors. We'll do Cool Stuff Inc. this time. CoolStuffInc.com, number one source for your game shopping needs. CoolStuffInc.com. Go pre-order your Ikoria cards. Go read my articles. Go read other articles. Go watch free content. And use promo code Jim5, 5% off your order, and get yourself a free Jim Davis Goblin token with your order. All right. Also, as always, I'll be doing the early access stream this coming Wednesday. It's coming Wednesday, early access stream. As always, I'll be building 10 new decks with Ikoria, playing all 10 new decks on stream. Of course, those will all go up on YouTube, as well as in my Friday article on CoolStuffInc.com, where I go over all 10 decks. So this is one of my favorite pieces of content that I do, and one of my most popular. So make sure you get involved with this. It all comes together. You watch the 10 decks on Twitch. Go back and watch them on YouTube, and then read the article on Friday all about every deck list, what I thought, what worked, what didn't work, and so on and so forth. You ready to go? We're ready to dive in here to Ikoria. Let's go. Start with white. That's right, start with white. And our very first card is Blade Banish. 4-mana instant, exile creature, power 4 greater. So obviously a limited card here. We take a pretty weird set of circumstances for this card to see play in Constructed. We have the Wanderer on the art. I didn't know the Wanderer was in Ikoria, but there she is, slicing through. And this card is pretty typical to this is a very common card you see in Limited. The kind of white kill a large creature effect. Probably going to be pretty good in Limited because it exiles, and with mutations happening, killing things is going to be important. We'll discuss Mutate a little bit later on when we see our first Mutate card, but stacking up a creature with a few mutates on it, being able to kill it is pretty important. So it is what it is. It's a common card. Again, I'm very unlikely to see this constructed, but Blade Banish, the Wanderer. I'm the Wanderer. I'm the Wanderer. Checkpoint Officer. Man, Master Decoy has fallen down here. So this is a common. This is obviously not for constructed. This is a tapper. Master Decoy was a same card, but just 1 white activation instead of 2 mana activation. So at 2 mana to tap, this card's a little clunky and limited. It's okay. Master Decoy was a tier 1 limited common, because tappers are really good at sort of like pseudo removal, pseudo blocker removal. But at 2 mana to tap, definitely worse. Probably are still a reasonable card in limited, but 2 is a lot more than 1. So if you're used to Master Decoy, this is not Master Decoy, but still probably a reasonable limited card. And again, thinking about mutations, thinking about kind of going big on one creature, a tap effect should be pretty good limited. So seems alright in limited, and obviously unplayable in constructed. Coordinated Charge, another limited card here. 5 mana global pump. We've seen this effect on cards like Inspired Charge. This seems probably a little bit better. Usually don't want to cast this card until turn 5 anyway. And then the problem with the cards like this in limited is that when they're dead, they're dead. So cycling, of course, is phenomenal. Very happy to have cycling back. Cycling should be evergreen in my opinion, just like Scry. It's one of those mechanics that just kind of smooths the game out. Allows you to put cards like this in your deck without feeling the real opportunity cost of, man, I'm behind right now. This card sucks. It's being able to cycle it, look for a new card. Reduces those feel bad moments. So definitely a cool limited card. If going wide is a big thing in limited, which it looks like it's going to be, this card seems pretty fine. So not a card you want a million of, but solid finisher in limited. Definitely a card you got to play around for sure. Oh boy, let's talk Mutate. Okay. I'm not gonna lie, mutate's one of the most complicated mechanics I've seen in a really, really long time. I had to watch multiple YouTube videos and read an article to understand exactly what it does. I will try my best to explain it to y'all, because it is weird. I'm sure it doesn't play as weird as just trying to talk about it, but mutate means that when you first you can just cast Cub Warden for its mana cost, right? For a white and 3 for a 3/5 lifelink, which is not exceptionally good, but it's it's a reasonable rate. That's all. That's all fine and good. You can also mutate the card. So you pay the mutate cost, and you must target a non-human creature you control. Okay, and if the mutate creature spell resolves, the Cub Warden will meld with the card in play, and you'll choose to put it either on top or the bottom. Whatever the top card is, that's the card in play. So if Cub Warden is your top card, the card is named Cub Warden. It has a mana cost of white and 3. It's a 3/5. It has lifelink. And then it has the text box of Cub Warden. And then it has the text box of every card under it as well. So for example, if you were to meld this with, what's a good vanilla kind of Charging Monster Store. Charging Monster Store. If you were to meld this with Charging Monster Store, it would have Trample, it would have Haste, and then it would have Lifelink and the Mutate ability. If the Cub Warden was on top, it'd be a white creature with a 3/5 with the mana cost, and be called Cub Warden. It would be a cat. If the Monster Store was on top, it would be a 5/5 red dinosaur for 5 mana with the name Charging Monster Store, and it would also have Lifelink. So hopefully that is mostly clear. Now, you don't choose top or bottom until it resolves, and if your opponent kills the creature you're trying to mutate onto in response, you don't get 2 for 1. It just comes in play as a creature, very similar to Bestow. So I have a Charging Monster Store in play. I got to mutate Cub Warden on it. They Doomblade it in response. Cub Warden just comes into play as if you cast it for its regular mana cost. So you don't get blown out. The corollary to this, though, is once it resolves, if your opponent Doomblades your new Charging Monster Store Cub Warden mutated creature, it does both do die. So the cost of mutating, it's almost like you're sacrificing a creature to make a better creature. If you're not getting any sort of trigger or effect off of the mutation, you're just kind of like going all in and putting all your eggs in one basket. And if they Doomblade it or Swift End it or whatever, it's gone for good. So there's a cost there. And the problem is, a lot of the mutate cards have an ability like this, where it says, whenever this creature mutates, do something. The ones that have that feel a little more like a spell adding on to your creature. The ones that don't, and are just like sizing, are not as good as they probably look, because if you mutate your 5/5 onto a 2/2 to make it into a 5/5, you've basically sacrificed your 2/2 at the same time. So it's a weird mechanic. It's very, very weird to parse. It's just kind of odd, honestly. If you blink it, every creature comes back individually. Pretty sure. And the creature is what it is in play. So if you mutate Cub Warden on top, it will not have Summoning Sickness as long as it was in play. Any +1/+1 counters on it or flying counters will stay. Any equipment on it will stay. Any auras on it will stay. It's just the same creature with this augmentation on top of it. If you bounce it, I'm not actually sure. I would assume every individual card will go back to your hand. I'm honestly not sure, though. It's a very weird mechanic with a lot of weird corner case issues. If there's any judges in chat right now that want to help me out, feel free. So that's Mutate in a nutshell. I wanted to go over Mutate kind of first. We'll go over each mechanic as we hit it. So that's the Mutate spiel. And back to the card itself. Cub Warden, again, 3/5, 4/4. Mutate cost is white 2. So same converted mana cost as actually casting it. But when you mutate it, you get 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. So on the surface, it feels like a great deal, right? It's, you think of a Cloud Goat Ranger, things like that, where you get a 3/5 lifelinker and 2 1/1 cat lifelink tokens. So that seems really good. But the problem is, what are you mutating onto? Is it a 2/2? Because you had to sack your 2/2 to get this. So it's definitely, I think this card's a little worse than it looks. Even if you're mutating onto like a 1/1 and you're sacrificing a 1/1 to make the Cub Warden, it's still kind of weird. And Cub Warden isn't sized in a way where you necessarily want it to be a 3/5. It's 3/5 is kind of in the middle. If you're mutating a smaller creature onto a larger creature to give it more abilities, you obviously choose the larger size. If you're mutating a larger creature onto a smaller creature, just kind of get the cheaper cost and try and stack abilities up, you choose the bigger one. Cub Warden's kind of in the middle at 3/5, which is a little weird. So definitely kind of a weird card. I think it looks really, really powerful at first glance. But I'm a little, I don't think it's amazing. And of course, you can mutate onto it again and get 2 more tokens, but now you're really stacking up all in the same thing, and 1 Swift End will just get rid of everything. So definitely an interesting card. I don't think this card's as good as it looks. It's probably fine, but I think that the cost to mutate is fairly high. I don't know. Mutate's probably going to be the hardest part of his entire set review because it's very, very hard to parse it without playing with it. Of course, the full set came out like a day and a half ago, so I have not played with any of these cards, obviously. So and not the review. So we're trying to figure things out. Mutating onto a Boreal Grazer, it's kind of a cute one, but so yeah, that's Cub Warden. We'll work with Mutate as we go on. It's just a really, really weird one. It's just such a weird mechanic. It's so bizarre. We'll see how it plays. All right, Day Squad Marshal, another limited card here. Just a 3/3 and a 1/1 for 4 mana. We've seen this before in green. Definitely a solid limited common. If going wide's a thing, which it looks like it's going to be in limited for white, probably very, very solid card. Not amazing, but just a very solid 4-drop. Nothing really crazier than that. Also, making a 1/1 token to mutate onto is pretty cool as well. So, Divine Arrow, another card we've seen before, just a reprint of Gideon's, whatever it's called, and it's been like 3 other different names. 4 damage to attacking or blocking creature, and yep, it's fine. It's good limited spell. This spell has seen playing constructed occasionally if blue-white controls like desperate for a kill spell, or if it's like some specific creature that needs to be killed and can't be killed by the more common kill spells, but probably not constructed playable. Definitely a fine card in limited. It's not amazing. You don't want a ton of this card, but it's okay. It's okay. Drannith Healer, 2 mana 2/2. Whenever you cycle a card, gain 1 life, cycling 1. Just a bear limited. Just okay. 1 life per cycle is not really worth much. Oh no, you can't mutate into humans, obviously. I'm gonna make like 5 mistakes on mutate over the course of a set review because the card, it's just such a weird mechanic. There's so many weird little things on it, but correct. You cannot mutate into humans. Good catch. So yeah, I don't think gaining 1 life off a cycle is really that amazing. It's fine. It's not great. It cycles. Limited fodder, unplayable, inconstructed. Drannith Magistrate. So another in the long line of white hate bears. Obviously not meant for limited. Meant for constructed sideboards, probably. Your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. This does hit a lot of stuff. Feel free to let me know when it hits in chat, because I'm sure I'm going to miss some. Can't Cascade. You can't suspend things. Cast things of self-suspend. Can't cast stuff from the graveyard. So can't cast Gravecrawler, Hogak, things like that. Adventure mechanic. Escape. You can't escape from the graveyard. Lot of different things. Yeah, Frenzy, the new Vivian, light up a stage. This stops a lot of things. Is that good enough? The body's pretty irrelevant as a 1/3 for 2. Not very good. But definitely just kind of another weird, quirky sideboard card. It does do a decent amount of things. It's sort of like, the fact that you can't like flashback spells is kind of cool. I don't know, honestly. Stops Companion, sure. Stops Golos activating for free. Yeah, it just like it does stuff. If those things that it stops are popular and constructed, it's a reasonable sideboard card. There's probably some silly like combos with this card as far as like I think knowledge pools I mentioned where you can like knowledge pool you do things not out of your hand or whatever it is. It's like a lock, but just kind of a weird card. Just another one of the weird stupid white hate bear cards. White's mechanics are gain life, dumb sideboard hate bears, and wrath effects basically, and then like crappy Savannah lines. White's just the worst color, it just sucks. But yeah, so definitely interesting sideboard card. It's a card. It's a card. Fight as one. This card is actually really sweet. So Fight as one's a 1-mana instant. Choose one or both. A human gets +1/+1 and indestructible to the end of turn, or a non-human gets that, or both. This card's kind of awesome, honestly. There's a sub-theme kind of synergy in the set of trying to get humans and non-humans to work together, where you get a bonus for having a human and a non-human, and the bonus of this card is pretty freaking good. As a 1-mana trick, just 1 white for +1/+1 indestructible is already like not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. And the fact that this can save 2 things is unreal. It's going to depend on the spread of creature types in your deck, obviously, but we think of cards like Feather the Redeemed. Just honestly, your opponent wants to cast a Wrath of God. You just pay 1, save 2 of your creatures. It's pretty awesome. It's a double pump spell. This is worth 2 damage in combat. You just pump 2 things. Just a very, very versatile card at a very, very low cost. This card's sweet. This card is definitely sweet. I would be surprised if this card didn't show up in Constructed at some point. Just a lot of power for only 1 mana. This card costs 2, unplayable. But at 1 mana tricks are really, really nice. They're very, very hard to play around, and this card has serious blowout potential. So I love this card. This card's insane and limited, great trick, and definitely constructed playable for sure. Flourishing Fox is a cool one. Flourishing Fox is 1 mana for a 1/1. Whenever you cycle another card, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it has cycling itself. There's definitely a cycling deck floating around. In Standard, I think. There's a lot of cards that trigger off cycling. They're actually good. We saw the one that gained life. Didn't like that one. But there's a few cards in Boros colors that trigger off cycling that are very, very pushed. And with the new... we've never seen cycling 1 before. Like, this is like a new thing. Like, cycling has always been usually 2 generic mana or 1 of a colored mana. And even then, Amonkhet was the first set to really give us a lot of cards with cycling 1 color mana. 1 colorless cycling it's honestly really unreal. Like, very, very cheap, very, very efficient, very, very easy to cycle. So don't underestimate that, because cycling 1 is a lot better than cycling of a color. And there's a lot of cycling 1 cards. There's a good amount of cards that trigger off cycling. I like this card a lot. I think this card's really sweet. Obviously, it needs to be specifically in a cycling deck to be good, but whether it's a cycling aggro deck, which I think is a possibility, or if there's some sort of like cycling deck that's more of a control deck, could board this card in as a cheap threat that grows. This card has a lot of potential. I like this card a lot. Very, very cool card. Needs to find the right support to be good, obviously, but definitely a really cool card. And possibly playable in older formats with other cycling effects, Street Wraith, things like that, Astral Drift. Cool card. Like this card a lot. A Garrison Cat. A little bit of a downgrade here from Hunted Witness and things like that. The token has no abilities. The only thing here is that this is a non-human, and it makes a human, so it kind of goes along with the humans and non-humans working together synergies. If you're looking for a Hunted Witness type card, and this is it, it's fine, but not super exciting. In limited, I imagine this card's also probably not good enough. Although it's not a bad card to mutate onto. It's not a human, and if it gets killed, you get a token. You're just looking to cheap down your mutate cost. It's not the worst. Aristocats, yes, it's an Aristocat. Nightmare Squirrel. Helica Glider, 3 mana for a 2/2. It is flying or first strike. Just a limited filler. There is a flying theme in limited, where you get benefits having flyers. So 2/2 flyer for 3 is, pretty standard limited fare. Nothing amazing, but it's okay. Obviously not playable constructed. Huntmaster Liger. This would be like a lion and a tiger together. That's cute, I guess. 4 mana for a 3/4. Mutates for 3. Whenever this creature mutates, all other creatures you control get +X till end of turn, where X is the number of times this creature is mutated. So, kind of a weird card. Definitely not playable in constructed, but so you mutate this onto like a 1/1 and make it a 3/4 and mutate your squad. Again, this is kind of one of the mutate creatures where we want to put it on something small because we're almost sacrificing a 1/1 to get a 3/4 that pumps the team for a turn. Because again, we're going to lose that creature we mutate onto. Definitely seems good in limited because again, going wide seems like a reasonable mechanic for limited in white. And just understand that we lose a creature when we cast this card. And I think that's the biggest thing about mutate is understanding that it's not, we don't just play this and get the effect. We have to sacrifice something to get it too. So definitely probably a good limited card, not playable constructed at all. Apparently Ligers exist in the real world. I don't believe you. I'm being made fun of. You're tooling with me. Imposing Vantasaur. Big dumb creature with cycling. This is like limited extraordinaire here. We see this all the time whenever cycling is legal. And just big dumb idiot. Cycle it early, cast it late. A 3/6 Vigilance is not exactly worth 6 mana, but with an opportunity cost so low, just put it in your deck. You can cycle it. This is very reasonable filler. Cycling 1. How far we've come. Keen Sight Mentor. This is a cycle. There's one of these in every color. 3 mana for a 1/4. Comes into play. Put a Vigilance counter on target non-human creature you control. So once again, new mechanic. Counters that give abilities. So ability counters. A little hard to keep track of, but pretty cool. Pretty cool mechanic. This comes into play. You put a Vigilance counter on target non-human creature you control. So again, we're seeing the human and non-human working together thing. And then it has a tap ability of putting a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with Vigilance. So, obviously not playable in constructed. I doubt the Vigilance deck will be taking off anytime soon. But in limited, if you're building around the Vigilance kind of theme, this card's really, really good. Even just pumping up the one creature you put Vigilance counter on is fine, because anything that scales in limited is really, really powerful. Things that don't have a ceiling in limited are important, because games can stall out at times. So as long as your thing is going up and up and up and up, that's a great place to be. So I'm sure all the mentors are very powerful and limited. This one's not amazing. It's still a 1/4, but definitely a reasonable limited card for sure. This card I like a lot. Lava Brink Venturer. It's a 3/3 for 3. Enters the battlefield, choose odd or even. Okay? And it has protection from each converted mana cost of a chosen value. So, you choose even. It has pros 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, obviously, and you know what odd numbers. I shouldn't need to explain that to you. So, you get to choose. If you choose 3, they can't Swift End it. They can't Lightning Bolt it. They can't Teferi Tuck it, and so on and so forth. Kind of a cool card. This feels like sort of True Name Nemesis done correctly, where you definitely can interact with it. It's not impossible, but it's still good enough. This feels like a really good target for... Never mind, since it's not a human. It's a human. Ugh. Mutations. Can't do that. But definitely a good thing to put equipment on if you can, and things like that, as long as you can do it, because it's odd or even. Just a solid card, I think. I mean, it's hard to know exactly what cards are being played right now, and so on and so forth. What's the most popular kill spell? Is it, Doomblade, Stomp, and Lightning Helix? Well, this card's probably pretty solid then. and so on and so forth. Just a kind of a cool card. You know, it's a 3/3 for 3, which is already fine. It's a human. This card will probably see blood. Definitely a reasonable one. And then obviously in limited, it's just freaking great. So this is cool. This feels like True Name Nemesis done right to me. And Hack-Thos or whatever it was done right. So like this one, definitely a cool card. Oh, Healing Salve. Light of Hope, 1 mana instant. So again, I'm already in love. 1 mana instants are fantastic. Choose one. Gain 4 life, kill an enchantment, or put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. So we have Battle Growth, Demystify, and I'm sure there's a card that gains 4 life for 1, but I can't think of it. Put all these things together, while each one's not worth a card by itself. This is definitely the best Demystify ever, obviously because it does 2 other things. But if enchantments are really, really popular, that's the most important mode for sure. Being able to 1-for-1 something with a 1 mana instant is great. Getting 4 life's not really worth a card, and then putting a counter on a creature is not really worth a card, but a fine option to have. This is probably more of a sideboard card. Again, the Destroy Enchantment part is the most important mode. If enchantments are really popular in Standard, this could be like a main deck card and like a white aggro deck maybe, but definitely a card to watch. You know, Demystify is playable at times. You know, there have been points in the last few years where it was a playable card, and this is much, much better than that. So it's reasonable. Although, not a strict upgrade to Healing Salve, because Healing Salve's primary purpose was to save your own creatures. This can't do that. So, Light of Hope. Luminous Broodmoth. Oh boy, folks, here we go. Are you ready? We have our best of show for white. That's right, we're doing a best of show for each color. And Luminous Broodmoth is the best of show for white. This card is very good. It needs to find a home, but this card compares very, very favorably to Nightmare Shepherd. Nightmare Shepherd, of course, was in the last set, the 4/4. Whenever something dies, you get it back as a 1/1. This is the same thing, but you get it back as itself with flying. So the issue was with Nightmare Shepherd is you get your 5/5 back, and it's just a 1/1, which is fine. It worked well with triggered abilities. Get your Yarok's Fenlurker back, they discard a card. And get your Grey Merchant back, they get drained. But the bodies didn't really matter that much. Just some random 1/1s, whatever. Luminous Broodmoth brings the body back and also gives it flying, which is great. So definitely a powerful card. I don't think you're playing this card straight up. I don't think you're just playing it and like if things die, they come back. Cool, because you know a 3/4 flyer for 4 is like okay, but not great. But once you mix this into some sort of sacrificey deck with sacrifice triggers and things like that, it's pretty cool. Definitely kind of weird because you don't want to play it with cards that already have flying, obviously, because you don't get the effect. But powerful card, very powerful effect. Able to double up on sacrifices. I don't think there's a way to remove the flying counters. If there is, then you have some sort of you could do a loop. You're also not exiling the card. That's true too. So yeah, I don't know exactly what deck wants this, but this is probably the most powerful card in white. A lot of the power in this set is concentrated in the gold cards anyway. So best of show in a certain color doesn't really mean that much. But infinite with persist, well, they'll still have flying. So right, I don't know, but the persist and the sacrifice effect. Yeah, you're right, actually. No, no, it doesn't. Yeah, it'll always come back with the... No, wait. So the persist, you can stack it, correct. So you can sacrifice the creature and have it return from persist, not return from Broodmoth. Comes back with a -1/-1 counter on it. Then sacrifice the creature, have it come back with a flying counter on it, and then sacrifice the creature. Yeah, that works. That's pretty cool too. So definitely a very powerful card, possible engine card. Just a lot of raw power on reasonable stats. So that's our best in show, Luminous Broodmoth. And let's move on to our next card here. In Majestic Oricorn. So 5 mana for a 4/4 vigilance, mutates for 4 mana, and whenever it mutates, you gain 4 life. So this is kind of what I was saying about the mutate thing. Like, what are we putting this on? It's a 4/4. If we mutate onto a 1/1, we basically just get a 4/4 that gains 4 for 4, but sacrifices a 1/1. It's fine. I'm not super huge on these kind of middle of the road mutate cards. I'm sure this card's fine and limited, but again, it is card disadvantage. If you mutate onto a creature and they kill the creature, you lose both creatures. So just please be aware of that. It's probably an okay limited card, but I don't know. Not really big on that. Man, how far? What was that card called? What was the common? So it was just this card in white. It was a soldier, and it cost 3 instead of 2. That power creep. That power creep. So 1 for vigilance for 2 definitely feels like a fine card to mutate onto because you get vigilance, which is nice. And also it has a pretty big butt. So even though your opponent can't blow you out by killing your creature in response to a mutate, they can deny you the mutate effect by doing that. So they kill your creature in response. The Aura Horn comes into play, but you don't gain 4 life. So that's a concern. So this seems like a great thing to mutate onto because it has a pretty big butt too, which is kind of nice. But obviously unplayable and constructed. Limited, we'll see. It does have vigilance too. There are cards in white that care about vigilance, and there are cards in white that care about big butts. So seems like a sneakily good limited card. Definitely unplayable constructed, but Okay, the Mythos. The Mythos cycle is pretty cool. Mythos cycle is a cycle of cards where they're monocolored, but if you pay the full 3 mana, you get an extra effect. So it says each player chooses an artifact, creature, enchantment, and planeswalker from among the online permanents they control, sacrifices the rest. If you play a black or red, you get to choose. This card's not very good. This card will still leave them with a creature, a enchantment, a planeswalker, and an artifact. And usually players don't have, 3 planeswalkers in play. So if you have to keep one, that's not really great for us. They have to keep a creature. If they're kind of going really wide on one thing, this can kind of do that, but why not just play Wrath? So I don't think this card's very good. The effect's very good. If you want to kill everything, play a Wrath. Definitely fun in Commander for sure. On a crazy board, you can do lots of things, so that's really cool. But games of Standard especially don't really get so convoluted where you can actually kill a lot of stuff with this, but still be facing down a non-scary board. So Pacifist was back, and given that cards like Glass Casket are playable, this card's not unplayable in Constructed, but going to be a top limited common for sure. Again, people going big on one creature, so should be really, really good in Limited, and then not unplayable in Constructed. Not unplayable. It's also an enchantment, which is important too, because, Constellation was a previous theme in the previous set. Pantiga Tiger? Whatever. 3/4 flyer for 5 comes into play. Gives a human +2/+2. This is a great limited common. 3/4 flyer for 5 is already fine limited, and that ability is very, very good. Definitely excellent limited card. Unplayable constructed. Perimeter Sergeant. 3/2 for 3. Whenever it attacks, humans you control get +1/+0. This card's not great. This card will only ever attack once in limited, which isn't really worth it. It's always going to trade off. It's okay for one big attack at the end, but this is a pretty fillery limited card. Obviously unplayable constructed. Sanctuary Lockdown. 3 mana for a enchantment. It's a Glorious Anthem for all of your humans. All humans get +1/+1. And you can pay 2 and tap to untap humans you control, and tap a creature an opponent controls. This card's kind of cool. Glorious Anthem's already kind of fine, and being able to tap things is not the primary function, but having the ability to do that is definitely cool. And again, going wide is pretty awesome too. So definitely a reasonable card. This card could see play constructed for sure. And then in limited, this card's probably good if you're a human deck. I don't know if that's really going to work in limited, but in constructed, I think this card's actually much more reasonable than it looks. It looks hokey, but there's a lot happening here for a reasonably small package, and that's pretty reasonable. Three over 2. Put this card in your limited deck if you need a 2/2, or if you need a 2-drop. Otherwise, not good. Just started, folks. We're just doing white. Snare Tactician. Whenever you cycle a card, tap a creature. This card's kind of sweet. Definitely not playable constructed, but definitely if you're a cycling deck in limited, this card's pretty awesome. 2/3 is not great, but with the high density of cycling cards, definitely a reasonable effect. It does suck there's no cycling lands, so you're only ever cycling spells in construct in limited, but definitely a reasonable card. Solid Footing, 1-mana trick again, and definitely reasonable. This is what I was talking about earlier about the toughness mattering. So I put this on your 1/4. Now it's a 5/5, which is pretty insane. Kind of a weird card, but a lot of power in only 1 mana. Definitely a reasonable trick. It will often be a lot bigger pump than it looks like, which is pretty powerful and limited. So kind of constricted in what it can do, but definitely a pretty powerful effect if you're looking for it. All right, Splendor Mare. This card's busted and limited, by the way. 3/3 lifelink for 3 is already solid. You can cycle it, and when you cycle it, you obviously draw your card, and then you... That's funny, cornball. You get to put a lifelink counter on a creature you control. That's pretty good. This card's probably not good enough for limited for constructed. A 3/3 lifelink for 4 honestly isn't bad, and realistically, the red decks don't have a lot of burn in them. Mostly just being Stomp, which only does 2. This card could be a sideboard card. It gets like mono red, but this is more of a limited card and a very high rate 1 at that. So very, very good in limited. And then also go with all your cycling triggers in limited. Probably not amazing in constructed. Probably just like maybe sideboard fair, but very good limited card for sure. Spontaneous Flight. 3 mana for a +2/+2, and it gives a flying counter. So this is the portal card. What's the portal card that gives horsemanship? It's the same card, but that one just like gave it horsemanship, but not until end of turn. So it was like an ability counter without an ability counter. It's pretty funny. So +2/+2 and flying, or +2/+2 and then flying, period. This card's fine. This card's kind of similar to Aspect of Manticore or Indomitable Will. One of those tricks where like the trick itself is like only okay. Obviously +2/+2 for 3 mana is not very good, but the flying counter you get left over is worth the trouble. So if we use this, say, on a 3/3 to win a combat step, now all of a sudden we have a 3/3 flyer, which is pretty cool. So, and of course, white cares about flying. 3 mana is a lot. 3 mana is a lot. This is not a card you're going to want that much of in your deck, I don't think. And a lot of white is already based on having creatures that fly already. So, like, this card doesn't fit very well into the flying deck because all your things should already have flying. But it's a card. It's not a great card. For 3 mana, this is not a very good deal, unlimited, and then obviously unplayable constructed as well. I don't believe there's a way to remove the ability counters in the set. I guess we'll find out, though, right? Stormwild Cap Rider, whatever. 3 mana for a 1/3 flyer. If non-combat damage would be dealt to Stormwild, prevent that damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each damage prevented this way. So it has like a permanent Test of Faith. The problem with this card is, when is it ever going to take non-combat damage that's relevant? Like a fight is basically the only thing. Your opponent's not going to lightning bolt this. You know, typically this effect is seen on instants. Cards like Test of Faith, where your opponent goes to bolt your creature, you Test of Faith it, now it's even bigger. Awesome. But that's not going to happen on a static ability, just like face up on the table. Cards like Deafening Clarion, sure. There's definitely ways you can damage your own creature, but this is not a constructed playable card. So in limited, I mean, a 1/3 flyer for 3 is okay. Marauding Raptor, that's kind of cool, actually. Marauding Raptor plus this card, that's not bad, honestly. It's pretty cool. But, yeah, it's kind of a really, really weird card, where it's like, the ability is usually seen on instants, and it doesn't really work well face up on the table. So, it's like, it's okay. I mean, it is pretty cute with Storm's Wrath and Deafening Clarion, but that's probably not gonna do it in constructed. And yeah, Star of Extinction would be hilarious, but not really what you're looking for in a constructed card. So definitely fine against red, I suppose. But I guess it is a good vessel for mutations. but not a super exciting card. Swallow Whole. A lot of 1 mana spells in this set. 1 mana spells are really good. So sorcery, as an additional cost to cast this spell, tap an untapped creature you control. So, okay, that's like, fine. Exile target tapped creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on the creature tapped to play this spell's additional cost. If this hit anything, or it was an instant, this card would be unreal good. Being a sorcery and having to only hit tapped creatures limits things. It's still, honestly, not bad. This is definitely a fine card in Limited. Very solid card in Limited. Constructed, probably not. It's just too limited in what it does. It also, if you're playing a lot of creatures, you're probably more aggressive. Therefore, killing a tapped creature doesn't really matter because you want to kill blockers. So not really a constructed card, but definitely a solid card in Limited. This card makes racing really good too. If you're racing with your opponent, if you get to deploy a threat and kill their threat, that's for 1 mana, that's pretty sweet too. So definitely not really a constructed card though. I could see it maybe, but probably not. It is exile too, which is relevant, but Valiant Rescuer, 2 mana for a 3/1. Whenever you cycle another card for the first time each turn, make a 3/1 white human soldier creature token. This card is awesome. This card is a really, really good payoff for cycling. On rate, it's a 3/1, which is fine. But being able to untap with this card, just like cycle a card, make a token, say go. Your turn, cycle a card, make a token, is phenomenal. This card goes wide really well. This card could definitely see play constructed if the cycling deck is reasonable. 1 mana to get a token and draw a card is phenomenal. So this card is very, very real. This card just seems great and Limited too. So definitely a really cool card. Definitely going to build a cycling deck for the early access stream. Absolutely. This card's very nice. Vulpikeet? I don't know, whatever. 4 mana for a 2/3 flyer, which is like, okay. Mutates for 3. And whenever it mutates, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. This card's pretty solid. So, again, we are kind of going all in onto a creature here. So say we have a 1/1, whatever, the 1/1 cat in play. We mutate this card onto it. We essentially sacrifice our cat, and we get a 3/4 flyer out of it, which is pretty good. But again, the cost to mutate is high, and we're basically sacrificing a creature to do it. There is the possibility of putting this on a larger creature. Say you have a 4/4 in play, you can mutate this onto it, put it under it, and therefore you have a 5/5 flying, which is pretty good. But again, it's a lot of all your eggs in one basket that I don't really like that much. I'm pretty wary of any mutate card that doesn't have a when this creature mutate effect that is a 1-for-1 in some way. This card's definitely fine, but there's a lot of all-in-one basket scenarios here, for sure. So it's fine. And our last card in white is Will of the All Hunter. 2 mana instant. Target gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If it's blocking, instead put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Cycling 2. So one of the things I often say in these in Limited reviews are you don't want to use your pump spells defensively in Limited, because if you're trying to use a pump spell defensive in Limited, you need to leave your mana untapped, leave your creature back, and just say go, which looks kind of obvious. Then your opponent gets to attack into you with all of their mana available, so they can play all of their tricks as well. Which is not really a great spot to be, but getting 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature is pretty tight. That's a pretty big payoff. So this is definitely a reasonable card in general, because a pump spell for 2 is like okay. It's got cycling, and on the blocks, it's pretty huge. This is definitely a blowout trick you're going to want to play around in Limited when you're attacking into someone. But definitely a card. Definitely a card. It's weird to see a pump spell. It's much better when you block than when you attack. But has utility in a lot of different ways and cycles. Is definitely a very solid Limited card, not playable and constructed. So that's white. White seems okay. In Limited, it seems to be the go wide color for sure. And then some, vigilant stuff on the side, some flying stuff on the side, and then some toughness stuff on the side. But for the most part, doesn't seem super exciting and constructed here. There weren't a lot of cards that jumped out and constructed. Of course, our best in show was the Broodmoth. White's as usual. White's struggled a bit lately, honestly. White's lacking in identity in some ways and seems to get like the leftovers from everyone else's mechanics. So we'll see. But blue is next. If you're watching on YouTube, please take a second to like, comment, subscribe to the video. It takes 10 seconds, helps me out a ton. And look for the other colors in different videos. But YouTube folks, I'll see you in the next video.